Hey guys, and welcome back to Betwixt the Books. It's Michaela here. I figured that since it is now August, that it would be a good time to do a check-in on my reading goals for the year. If you didn't know, back in January I did a bookish resolutions type video where I talked about kind of what I wanted for myself when it came to booktube, but to also just to reading. And if you haven't seen my recent life update, it probably isn't going to be a surprise that I have not been hitting those goals. But let's talk about it, and then also maybe talk about what I want to do for this last 30% of the year, or 40%, however much is left. We're past halfway, so it's less than half of the year for sure. My first goal is a goal that Gretchen and I shared, which is to do our buddy reading challenge. We are 50% of the way through that challenge. There's 10 main goals and 2 bonus goals. We have achieved 5 of the 10 main goals. We have plans for, I want to say, 3 or 4 more of those. There's really only one item of the 10 that we don't have a set definitely going to get to it type thing, which I think means that we're on track to do better than we have any year previous, which is good for us. We have never fully completed it 100%, and that's fine. The point of the challenge is not for us to pat ourselves on the back for doing this. It's more so just to push us outside of our comfort zone when it comes to reading, and it's definitely doing that the same that it always has. But we're doing pretty good, at least when it comes to that goal. If you want to see what our challenge is and you would like to join it, there is a Storygraph challenge. I will link it down below for you to click on if you want to see. It does give you an idea of maybe some of the things we might possibly be talking about, or you might be able to use it to maybe push yourself outside of your reading zones. And we've done videos in some form or fashion on all of the things that we have read so far for this challenge. So if you are interested in that, that's there as well. The second challenge was to read 1 book a week. And according to Storygraph, I'm 16 books or something behind that specific goal. I've read 13 or 14 books so far this year, which is about half, a little bit less than half of where I need to be. Some months I read more than others, but I definitely wasn't reading 1 book a month. And that was because my work life was hell, and it was eating all of my time and energy, and I wasn't reading. I was reading SteadyFix. I'm still reading SteadyFix, so that doesn't include... I read every day. It's just not always a book. Most of the time, it's some form of study or other fandom content. I'm still going to stick to that goal going forward. I'm going to try and read 1 book a week. I might read more than that. I might read less than that. But that's my goal, is to still try and read 1 book a week for the rest of the year. I should, in theory, be able to do that more consistently now, because I don't have my time getting eaten up all the time. But we'll see going forward if I'm able to keep that. But we're still trying with just 1 a week. I'm not going to be oh, now I have all the free time, I'm going to read 1 book a day. I probably could read 1 book a day, but I'm not going to hold myself to that, because that's too hard for me right now. We're easing our way in. 1 book a week. Doable challenge. I agree with myself back in the past. It's an achievable goal. The second goal was to read 1 arc a month. And so far this year, there were 2 months where I did not read an arc, but there were months where I read more than 1 arc. We're 7 months into the year. I've read 6 arcs, so I'm pretty close to achieving that. If I read 2 arcs at some other point this year, I will have hit the 12 arc goal. Most of those arcs were arcs that I was reading with Gretchen. They weren't arcs that I read for my own personal reading, but challenge so far pretty much on track. 1 book behind. I'm gonna say we're doing all right. We're doing all right with that goal. The second goal was to read 1 backlist book a month. The months where I did not read an arc, I did read a backlist book, so I can say that. But for the most part, that one I am failing much more so than the arc challenge. I think I have only read 5 backlist books this year, as opposed to 6 arcs, which again, 7 months, 5 backlist books, still more or less, I'm it's not horrible, right? I'm not totally off the mark. There was really only 1 book that I've read so far this year that wasn't either a backlist book or an ARC. It was something that popped up on Kindle Unlimited that I read for a reason, but that I read on Kindle Unlimited. There's one book that wasn't already on my TBR somewhere. So honestly, I think I'm doing okay. It's not quite where I wanted to be, but it's definitely not horrible. And again, both of those are achievable goals. I think I could still definitely do one backlist and one ARC a month. I think those are achievable goals for me. I can do more than that or less than that if I wanted to, but one a month still seems to be hitting this spot. Already read my one ARC for August. You can go and see Gretchen and Maya's review of um, Dark Restraint, which was the new Katie Robert book in the Dark Olympus series that came out on Friday this past week. And I have a backlist book that will be read for the Reading Roundtable by the end of the month. So I'm already on track for reading that this month. I do also have some other books that I want to read for other, like, video ideas that I have floating around in my brain. We'll see how far that goes, but we at least have, like, the bare minimum being met for August already. I'm thinking about adding on for myself of a possible, like, adding one nonfiction book a month. Now that I have more free time when it comes to reading nonfiction, I know Gretchen likes to listen to a lot of her nonfiction on audio. I feel like every time I have a nonfiction book, it's something that I want to have physically in front of me with highlighters and stuff. I will oftentimes listen and read them at the same time to help with my comprehension. I find that reading and listening at the same time specifically helps me stay focused with my ADHD. I'm less likely to start doing something else and get distracted and stop listening to something, or get bored when I'm just reading it physically, because there's two forms of stimuli there. I feel like I'm able to engage more with it that way. So it takes more time and more effort than, like, a fiction book would. I can listen to a fiction book on audio on, like, 3 times speed and just sort of take in the story that way. Whereas I feel like when it comes to nonfiction, I try to be more participatory in my reading. I don't know if I'm the only one out there that does that. Maybe I'm weird. I know there's people who read fiction the same way that I look at nonfiction. So I don't know. But I think I want to add that. How are you guys doing? Are you meeting your goals? Have you checked in to see if you stuck to them? I know a lot of people set goals at the beginning of the year and then they don't really look at them again until the end of the year. And they're like, oh yeah, I didn't even realize that that was a goal that I wanted for myself, type thing. I think that checking in with your goals periodically is helpful. Especially because then you can also say, actually, this goal isn't serving me. For instance, having the Pop Sugar reading challenge for me, I enjoy using it as a tool to help me pick books, specifically off of my backlist, because sometimes it helps you be like, okay, I'm going to do this. But for me, most of the time, I'm not going to be reading, what is it, like 100 books? It's or pretty close to 100 challenges every year. I just, at this point in my life, I'm not reading that quantity of books. So me saying, I'm going to look at this and see it, but I'm not actually going to hold myself to completing this, is helpful. Reevaluating your goals can be helpful, because sometimes what you think is important in January may no longer be important come June. Do you guys set reading goals for yourself? What sort of goals do you set? Is it a thing to help you read wider? Is it a thing to help you read more? Is it a thing for consistency? Like with me, I struggle with consistency. I tend to binge things and then go very long periods of time without doing anything. So I'll read like 5 books in 1 month and then the next month read one. It's interesting. I don't know. It depends on where my brain's at. Is that an ADHD thing? Does anybody else know? If you have any ideas on goals, or maybe not goals, maybe challenges or other things that you sort of put yourself up against, I would be really interested to hear about them, and I would love to get a comment down below where you talk about, like, oh, this is what I do every year. Whether it's like the Goodreads challenge and you're like, I'm gonna read 50 books, or I like to read every day, or whatever it is. I'd like to hear what you guys do. Do you even do challenges at all, or do you just read whatever you want whenever you want? You don't really look at your reading critically in that way. Interesting to see. I'm hoping that I have some sort of review for you next week. There's a couple of arcs and one new release that came out this week that I'm interested in picking up, so I don't know if I'm actually going to read any of those, but I have them as an option. So we'll see if that happens. If not, I will have something else for you next week, regardless, whatever it may be. And I hope you guys are having lovely lives, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye.